Good morning. I am Barbara Martin, Chair of the Standing Committee, the elected leadership team here at First Church in Boston, and I am delighted to welcome all of you, and in particular this morning, those following us on YouTube. For this morning, we are broadcasting with our new and greatly upgraded broadcast sound and light system. So you heard that prelude as beautifully. I'm a lover of live music, maybe not quite as beautifully as we did here, but very, very close. And I am delighted to be here on this first Sunday when all is coming to you so well. I also want to welcome those of us gathered here in the sanctuary at the corner of Marlborough and Berkeley, and in particular, to reach out to those of you who are visiting, particularly, especially if it's for the first time, whether you're coming to the city of Boston from somewhere else, or whether you are part of the greater Boston area and decided to come by this morning. If you would like to learn more about First Church or about Unitarian Universalism, you can go to our website, firstchurchboston.org, or speak to Reverend May or to me during the coffee hour. And I hope you will stay for coffee hour and join us for socialization and community in the narthex outside the sanctuary. There are a number of announcements this morning, even though we had our glorious formal installation of Reverend May as our minister last week, but there is a lot of activity coming right hard on the heels of that ceremony. Today, the social justice community meets at 12:30. That meeting is open to all to hear reports from activity in relation to some of our partner organizations in the community, and to look ahead to some upcoming events. Very important announcement, 2 weeks from today, the annual meeting of First Church in Boston will follow the service. There will be a light luncheon for those staying for this really crucial central meeting. This is when we elect our officers for the coming year, the members of the Standing Committee, the Nominating Committee, the Membership Committee, as well as looking back with reports from committees about the activities of this past year. So it's a very important moment of looking forward and looking back. Also, you will find in your order of service a very enthusiastic invitation from the current nominating committee, Ellie Miller, Mary Collins, and Beth Curran, to be in touch with them if you are interested in becoming more involved at First Church and perhaps serving on one of these committees as they are putting together the slate of nominees. I also wanted to mention a learning community which is scheduled for Wednesday, May 22nd at 6 o'clock here at the church, but it will also be hybrid and you can participate by Zoom. This is a discussion of the upcoming vote at General Assembly, the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, the vote on Article 2, which conveys the shared purposes and values of the member congregations. Reverend Stephanie is going to give an overview of the process to date, giving summaries of the pro and con positions on these changes, and then moderate a discussion. And there will also be a light meal provided here for that event. So all of that to have in mind for the coming weeks, and let our worship now begin.
Last week was amazing, and thank you to everyone who was here and who participated in the installation service. And I am both thoroughly happy to be I'm installed full strip in the wall, and beginning to actually recover some energy. So our opening words today come from the Reverend Maureen Killoran. Welcome, you who are in need of healing, you who are confused or have been betrayed. Welcome with your problems and your pain. Welcome to your joys and your wonderings. Welcome your need to hope, your longing for assurance. Instead of answers, here you may find safety for your questions. Instead of promises, May you find community for your struggles, people with hands and hearts to join you in engaging the challenges and changes of our day. Welcome to this work. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit to say together the First Church Boston affirmation as I light our chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And let's take a moment to greet one another. I don't know what camera we wave to now, Craig. Somewhere. Wave around, they can see us. Let's remain standing as we prepare to sing our opening hymn, For Flowers That Bloom About Our Feet. It is spring, and spring does include rain and gray days, but that brings the flowers. So please join me in singing number 76, For Flowers That Bloom About Our Feet.
Wonderful. Please be seated. Is that working now? No? Yes, it is. There we go. Wonderfully done. I snuck up this morning and looked at Stephanie's, the strip, and I thought, as I said to Robert, it's like the Velveteen Rabbit. Like, now you're real. Now, last Sunday really was spectacular. It really was fantastic. Today's story comes from the Middle East. It's a story of a king who, when he got tired of doing king things, would dress up like a commoner and go out amongst the people. And one night while he was doing this, he ended up in the poorest neighborhood of his kingdom. And he heard a man singing, and he thought, how could that be possible? Someone who lived in this area couldn't be happy. And he found this man singing. He said, what makes you happy? And he said, the man says, my God is great. I am just a poor traveling cobbler, but I make just enough money each day to provide for myself, and for that I am grateful. And the king was so impressed. He went home and he thought, I'm going to challenge this man a little bit. Let's see how happy he really is. So he made a decree. No more traveling cobblers. And he gave it a day or two, and he went back out, got dressed up in the commoner's clothes, and went back out amongst the people. And he found this man once again happily singing. And he said, oh, friend, how can you be so happy? He said, oh, my God is so wonderful. Even when the king passes this law, I didn't know what to do for a day. I didn't know where I would make any money to survive. But then I saw people carrying water and being paid for that, so I started carrying water. It is so fantastic. And the king thought, well, I'm going to go and make another decree. Let's see how happy he will be. So once again, he made another decree. No more water carriers or cobblers in the kingdom. And once again, went back out a few days later. The man was singing, happy. How can you be happy once again? He said, well, the king made his decree, and I couldn't carry water anymore, but I saw people collecting firewood, so I thought I would do that too. So the king thought, this is a tougher nut to crack than I thought. So he made a different decree. No more firewood collectors, and everyone who was collecting wood is going to be pressed into military service. And you won't be paid till the end of the month. And he thought, I'll give it a few more days, and I'll go back out. So he did. He gave it a few more days, got dressed back up, went out there, once again heard the man singing. And he said, friend, I heard that things are not working out for you, and yet still I find you singing. He said, oh, my God is wonderful. I was no longer allowed to collect wood, and then I got drafted into the army, and I wouldn't be paid till the end of the month, and I thought, how will I survive? And then I looked at that sword, that very fancy sword, and I thought, I bet I could sell the blade of this sword for enough money to get me through to the end of the month. And so that's what I did. And I've just replaced the metal blade with a wooden one. What are the chances of anything happening? The king went back once again. Next morning, he called all of his new soldiers together. Come up. There is a public execution. The whole kingdom comes out for this public execution. And of course, the king chooses his friend, our friend, not his friend. The king, once again, the king is bored with his life. He decides that he's going to, be a puppet master over everyone. But he chooses our friend to be the executioner. And of course, he is terrified, not only that he has to take a life, but also that he has a wooden sword. He's not going to kill anyone. So he asked the king, King, please, I've never killed anyone before, never even killed a fly. Allow me to say a prayer to my God. So he does. He said, God, I'm a peaceful man, and if this man is guilty of this crime of stealing vegetables from the royal garden, then make my sword be so sharp that it kills him with one blow. But if he is innocent, may my sword be turned to wood. And with that, he drew his sword, and everyone seeing this sword made of wood believes a miracle has happened. Oh, great cheers, hooray, the man is released. The king learns a lesson. Maybe just a little lesson. He calls our friend up. He tells him who he was. And he says, you are much wiser than I am. You are a man of the people. I have treated you and others in my kingdom unwisely, and I must change. And I want you to come and be an advisor to me. And that's what's happened. As we go about our week, may we, when we run into difficult times, have the same faith as that man, always hoping and believing that something good can come out of it. And if we have power over others, may we be just and kind and not act like a king. And now some beautiful music from our choir.
If you read the sermon blurb, you know that the sermon today will be about democracy and voting. And I love how that song, Simple Gifts, conveys that sense of light freedom. Thank you. Our 6 months from today will be the next presidential election. Our prayer today comes from Sarah Lawal, who is a Unitarian minister, I believe, in Idaho. And she wrote this November 7th, 2016. Please take a deep breath in and out. In and out. Spirit of life and love, in this time of uncertainty, of fear and angst, our nation holds its collective breath. In this time when rhetoric blusters about and words are used as weapons, our nation clenches its fists, tightens its shoulders, eyes squeezed shut. Some are preparing for a fight. May we remember we are a people of resilience. We have faced uncertainty before. We have weathered storms. We have been consumed by flames and risen like the phoenix from the ashes. And we will again. We, the people. May we remember our shared humanity, our universal kinship, our interdependence as we unclench our fists and breathe together, breathing in love and breathing out peace. May we recognize the spark of the divine inside all of us, even those we are not quite sure about. In this time of uncertainty, we remember the goodwill goes on as we work to move forward together. We, the people, seeking that which unites us, with our arms reaching out wide for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May love prevail. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. I invite you now into a moment of stillness. This is a moment in the service that we leave each month for people to come forward and share their joys or sorrows, and for all of us to witness our shared humanity and how we all have hopes and struggles. I invite you to come forward, say your name, and add a stone to the water as you wish.
Good morning. I'm Grace Greger, longtime member of this church, and this is a joy. On Thursday night, I attended the UU Urban Ministry, Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry Open House at John Eliot Square in Roxbury, and I know some of you know a little bit about the organization. I have been involved with it more or less now, for 25 years, and I can say with a clear conscience that Thursday's open house that gave us a chance to see the premises, the programs, to meet some of the faculty and the leaders involved, the wonderful students who were enthusiastic, really did impress me. And I think this is all made possible by Mary Margaret Earl, Reverend Mary Margaret Earl,
who many of you know. And I just want to say, if any of you want to learn more about it or find out, I'm more than happy to direct you or share information. It was truly it was an uplifting experience. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Janine, and on Friday, David and I got to go to a wedding. It was the wedding of Thomas and Gina, and Thomas was adopted by my best friend, Marilyn, from Lithuania when he was 3 years old. And here he was, 28, getting married, and it's just chills, you know, and he's so happy, as you should be on your wedding day, but just happy to his soul. And it was a blessing to see it. So here's to Gina and Thomas.
Because of the topic and what we're talking about, to hold all that's dear, and I am speaking to the choir, I would still encourage people to call their friends from not Democratic majority states and talk about their vote and how important it is actually to all of us. So that's it. I am so grateful that I live in this country, as are you, all of you, and we have the kind of religious church experience that we do. Pretty wonderful, so. There you go, thank you.
Hi, Dan. I'm the father of the two rambunctious boys that are always running around. And Quinn, a joy, is that he turned 9 on Friday. And it was 2015, May 3rd, on a Sunday that he was born, and it was announced in this church. So now that's the joy. The question is related to the future. What world is he inheriting? And I feel like we're, as a community, doing a good job raising him, but I know it's going to be complicated.
Speaking of complicated, I just want to add a stone. As somebody who has spent more than a decade of my life in higher education, I want to add a stone for all of the campuses who are struggling with how to both support freedom of speech for the protesters of the students, and also to cultivate a community in which our Jewish friends feel safe. So adding a stone for that.
Thank you. For those of you who know me, I'm David Reno, and for those of you who don't, I'm also David Reno. I would like to say, you mentioned voting. I have many thoughts about joys and concerns. My concerns are the dis-peace in the Middle East. The hostages should be released. The women and children who are being killed in Gaza should end. We should have justice and peace. And rather than repeat something, I would like to suggest you go back to see Bancroft's quotation that political power comes not from property, but from the people, not from authority, but by the free formation of public opinion. What is a church? Is it the building? When I came here, the building was an ashen heap over there. It looked like the photographs I saw of Berlin in 1945. A church can be a building, but also the people in the building. And we are the church, and I feel very invested in being a member of this continuing community that has gone back and will continue on as long as there are people who believe in justice in the larger sense of the word. And I don't mean the Department of the United States government. So I put a thing for the hostages, who I hope should be released, and I hope for medical care for the casualties. And as some fellow say, Isaiah said, "Come, let us reason together." Great idea. Let's practice it.
Good morning, all. Is this working? Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, I'm John Clark, and I was watching TV the other night, and I'm here to plug a show that's called a brief history of the future. And I was watching the show, and our own member, Helen Reese, was interviewed on it, which was just absolutely fantastic. So I'll tell you, if you get a chance, do yourself a big favor. Go on WGBH, and for $5 a month, you can become a member of this thing, so you can go on and watch whatever TV show you want to go. Do not miss this show. It's called A Brief History of the Future. It's absolutely fantastic. Have you seen it?
I've not seen it, but I have the link all set, ready to watch.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah. Thank you for everyone who shared, and I know more thoughts and feelings and hopes and concerns reside in our hearts and minds, and so I add another stone for all of that. And I now invite our ushers to come forward for our offering. I have been forewarned that this is a really spectacular but brief offertory, so get ready, pay close attention.
Mornings at 7, the hillsides dew pearled, the larks on the wing, the snails
can tell we're all just a little bit tired still from all that last week. So, our reading this morning is by Nikki Giovanni. Can you hear me? Okay. And the title is Vote. And if you can visualize, it's in bold, vote. It's not a hug nor mistletoe at Christmas. It's not a colored egg at Easter, nor a bunny hopping across the meadow. It's a vote, saying you are a citizen. Though it sometimes is chocolate or sometimes vanilla, it can be a female or a male. It is right or left. I can agree or disagree, but, and this is an important but, I am a citizen. I should be able to vote from prison. I should be able to vote from the battlefield. I should be able to vote when I get a driver's license. I should be able to vote when I purchase a gun. I must be able to vote if I'm in the hospital, if I'm in the old folks' home, if I'm needing a ride to the polling place. I am a citizen. I must be able to vote. Folks were lynched. Folks were shot. Folks' communities were gerrymandered. Folks who believed in the Constitution were lied to, burned out, bought and sold, because they agreed all men were created equal. Folks vote to make us free. It's not cookies nor cake, but it is the icing that is so sweet. Good for the folks, good for us.
Six months from today, November 5th, 2024, U.S. citizens will vote for the next president. To say that this election is heavily contested should surprise no one. However, you may be surprised that I am preaching on this today. Perhaps you are surprised that I am wading into the tumultuous terrain of electoral politics. Or perhaps what surprises you is the today part, a full 6 months before the election. For me, the topic and the timing are related. Voting and democracy are deeply connected to our religious tradition, a topic vital to our sense of human nature. And I am addressing this today because 6 months is not a lot of time given the stakes of the next election for democracy. Let me begin by saying, I strongly believe that religion is bigger than politics. I believe religion is about answering the biggest questions about who we are as fragile, fierce creatures, about finding where we belong within this complex, beautiful, maddening world, and about meaningfully navigating the ever-shifting dynamics of our shared planet. I believe religion is making sense of life by naming the landscape around us and identifying the values that help make our way through that terrain. We live out our religious values and commitments in multiple ways. In our interpersonal interactions with friends, family, and strangers, in creative moments of art and music, in quiet spiritual practices of reverence or prayer. And I believe we express our religious commitments in political action, by how we vote, by the leaders we choose, by the issues we support. Religion may be bigger than politics, but politics are a critical way to meaningfully express our values about how to dwell together in shared society. Or to be more specific, the political form of democracy enables us as citizens to have a voice in shaping how we might dwell together. Not all forms of politics welcome the voices of the people. Our authors Francis Moore Lappé and Adam Eichen claim that this pathway to having a voice and a vote makes democracy essential to human flourishing. In their 2017 book, Daring Democracy, they write, "Creating democracies truly accountable to their citizens is essential to our very survival, to the flourishing of societies supporting human life, and now, because of climate change, to the survival of the earth as we've inherited it. This is a colossal claim, we know, but there's one point on which human history makes us absolutely certain. It's not the magnitude of a challenge that crushes the human spirit. At our founding, farmers, shopkeepers, laborers, and slaves defeated an empire. Since then, Black Americans risked their lives to fight against the subjugation of slavery and then for their democratic rights. Women fought for 7 decades to secure suffrage. No, it's not a huge challenge that kills the spirit. What most defeats us is feeling useless, that we have nothing to say, nothing to contribute, that we don't count." End quote. Democracy gives us a purposeful role in contributing to the shape of the world we live in. Democracy is how we social human animals work together to build societies for human and planetary flourishing. Fighting to have a voice in this work and to preserve democracy is no small thing. As poet Nikki Giovanni writes, "I must be able to vote. Folks were lynched, folks were shot, folks' communities were gerrymandered, folks who believed in the Constitution were lied to, burned out, bought and sold because they agreed all men were created equal. Folks vote to make us free." Democracy is essential to equality, to freedom, to human flourishing. Can you imagine not living in a democracy? Such depictions are readily available in contemporary culture, from the chilling post-apocalyptic Handmaid's Tale to the romanticism of Netflix's Bridgerton to the violence of Games of Thrones. While fictional, such shows can challenge us to imagine a world without democracy. For example, a few years ago, in an episode of the PBS show Victoria, the young queen quips that she would think that a self-made king of France should be very pleased to receive a visit from an anointed queen. Her offhanded comment reflects a very real and powerful centuries-long belief that the authority to govern comes from God, the universal ruler. Claiming an authority rooted in God's choice gives the ruler an authority beyond the reach of human society. In contrast, the idea of a self-made ruler with authority grounded in human rather than divine power seemed far less desirable to Victoria. And yet, when our religious and political ancestors here in Boston helped to spark a revolution against Great Britain. They rooted the authority and we the people. They claimed a human capacity to choose their own rulers, their own form of government. The people could self-rule. God still had a role as the creator of these human capacities. But make no mistake that the patriots of the American Revolution were not only making a political statement, they were also upending a religious framework, claiming that humans had the authority to rule themselves was a revolutionary religious idea, reflecting assumptions about a God-given human nature. The idea of self-rule by the people also began to remake assumptions about power in human society. In the system where God is ruler of the universe, who divvies out powers to rulers God chooses, power flows one way, top down. The smart person in that theological system submits to God or God's representative. Such theological claims about God the ruler generates an acceptance of hierarchical power as the natural and proper order of the universe. And when one accepts hierarchy as natural, the application of the same principle can be vast. Aristocrats with land are better than landless peasants. Men are higher than women. Whiteness is superior to people of color. One religious group is better than another. People matter more than the earth, and so on. But not all views of God support such a hierarchical understanding of power. Claims that God gave humans the capacity for self-rule undergirded calls for a new democratic form of government. Ideas and institutions for active discussion among citizens about how to govern their shared society emerged, replacing assumptions of obedience to a divinely ordained hierarchical rule. However, despite the rhetoric of God-given human capacity for self-rule, we also know that in 1775, not all humans were understood to equally hold this capacity. And so theological debates about the meaning of human equality would continue on in the fights against slavery, as well as for women's suffrage and civil rights. In my own education in feminist Christian theology, I was trained to build a vision for equality upon a biblical passage from Galatians 3:28. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male and female, for all are one in Christ Jesus. In this view, God remains unquestionably superior to humankind. But God's expectation is for a universal equality among humans. Too many liberal and liberating religious traditions today, they uphold some version of this theology, evoking a God who demands a just, equitable world among all people. But what of us as Unitarian Universalists? As inheritors of a Unitarian legacy, we hold fast to the capacity of people to make moral and religious decisions. In other words, we can be self-rulers, acting from a place of individual conscience. But this is not the whole story. We are also inheritors of a universalist legacy. Indeed, if you remember, Charles Chauncey, the minister here in the 18th century, was an early proponent of universalism. So we are inheritors of this universalist legacy, which claims an inclusive love that embraces all people. Universalism calls us to loving consideration of lives of others beyond our individual rights. Together, these threads of moral capacity and universal inclusion compel us to support systems of democracy where power is shared and each person has a voice and a vote. For Unitarian Universalists, supporting democracy expresses deeply rooted religious values about human capacity and equality. We are in a pivotal moment in our nation where democracy is being actively challenged. And I am mindful that I sound like the sermonizing generations of ministers before me. Indeed, generations of ministers before me have spoken freely and forcefully from the pulpits of First and Second Church in defense of democracy. Democracy reflects our religious commitments to enabling the right of conscience and inclusively valuing the voices of others. And so, yes, in the next 6 months, you will hear me champion actions that deliberately support democracy and the rights of people to freely vote. What you will not hear from me are calls to vote for particular candidates or political parties. This is not simply a matter of following the IRS guidelines from nonprofit organizations. To me, resisting the pull into partisan politics rests in my belief that religion is bigger than politics. I am shaped on this point by growing up as an evangelical Christian. For example, I remember walking into my college chapel one day to find leaflets littering the seats of the 2,000 theater seats in the baby blue auditorium. Taking my assigned seat, I picked up the sheet of paper and began to read. The paper turned out to be a voting guide, alerting us, the young voters, how various candidates lined up on issues dear to the evangelical Christian worldview of my college. On the one hand, this experience reinforced to me the viability of counseling people to vote their religious values without being explicitly partisan. Values, religion, and voting are simply intertwined. In a democracy, we should be able to vote our conscience, which of course is formed and shaped by religious commitments. On the other hand, that sea of leaflets reflected a larger context in which the religious right was becoming increasingly identified with a single political party. Decades later, this trend has accelerated to foster the rise of white Christian nationalism. This rise is a dangerous threat to both religious pluralism and social multiculturalism, values we hold as Unitarian Universalists. Over the coming weeks and months, I hope to deepen my own understanding of the rise of white Christian nationalism and to sharpen my critique. What I can say today is that as the church founded by John Winthrop and his vision for a city on a hill, we have a vested interest in this debate. Insofar as his vision and the Puritan Project are cited as a foundation for envisioning the true America of a white Christian nation, I believe we as inheritors of this church, his church, have a right, even a duty, to speak to why we support a different vision today. The next 6 months will be a fight over more than which political party ascends to the presidency and power. They will also be about more than politics. As a religious people, our values call us to support a political system that protects the right of conscience and the equitable inclusion of others in shaping our shared world. Our values call us to support democracy and the right to freely vote. In the next 6 months, I hope you will join me in this fight. So may it be. Amen. Our closing hymn is in our teal hymnal, number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. Please rise in body or in spirit and sing out. Please join me now in the words to extinguish our chalice printed in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Sustained by our connections to each other and to all that is holy, may we love with abundance, welcome across difference, and work together to build a more just and equitable world for all. Amen.